What do we think of Sinners, everybody? Who's seen this movie for the first time? Wow, a lot of you. Well, welcome. Yeah, you see what all the fuss is about. Pretty incredible, right? So we're going to do things a little differently today. We're going to have this conversation be entirely focused on the surreal montage sequence. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about it. We've got a lot of time today. We've got a lot of people involved in the making of that incredible sequence. So please join me in welcoming them, starting with Michael Ralla, the visual effects supervisor. Chris Welker, the production sound mixer. Shunika Terry Jennings, hair designer. Raphael Saadiq, the songwriter of Shawver, the editor of the film. Durald Arkapaw, the cinematographer. Beachler, the production designer. Ruth E. Carter, the costume designer. Our Sammy and the performer of that amazing sequence, Caton. Director, writer, producer, Coogler. Hi, everybody. A lot of love in this room. It feels good. Ryan, you've talked a lot about the midpoints of your movies. Wanting to make a statement with them, maybe challenge audiences' expectations based on what they'd seen versus what's coming after it. The midpoint in this movie is, in my opinion, the sequence of the year. So, where do you start? Where does an idea like this come from?
Thanks y'all for coming out. I think with this one, it came from the same place that the script came from. Like, it was a way for me to make something fun and something that I felt like only I could make. This is the movie I'm talking about, not the scene, you know. But what it really came down to was like that, a study on like that active remembrance that I would do for my uncle after he passed away. My Uncle James passed away in 2015, and he was the person who kind of introduced me to blues music. And I never really would call myself like a blues music fan while he was alive, but after he died, I would find myself listening to those records to like think about him, remind myself of him. And during that process is when I fell in love with the music. And yeah, like the power of any type of art, if you have like an association with it, like if you used to eat a dish with a loved one, one of my favorite movies, Ratatouille, is basically about that idea. Yeah. Like, y'all know, like where the critic eats the Ratatouille, he goes back to being a kid, like that's a real thing for me. Blues music was that. I would listen to these records and close my eyes and feel like my uncle was there with me after I had lost him. So when I got to that point in the script where Preacher Boy performs for the first time and the juke joint is active, is working, they got it all done in that day. You know, it hit me again, like while I was making the movie, and then tried to use film language to kind of portray, you know, the power of this art form, but like on a larger scale. And it just gave us the opportunity to take a lot of risks in each department. So that was kind of, you know, where it was coming from.
You
Oh, thank you.
Very much so. So when it came to what some of those risks were, we're talking about this collapsing of history and time. We're talking about, really crowded shot in many ways, and we're talking about a oneer. A lot of components that are, in some ways hallmarks of your films, and in some ways, feel like a real leap forward, even for what this film is. So, with all these incredible people on the panel, what were some of those conversations you had about cinematography, about the look, in terms of how you would accomplish it?
Yeah, I mean, they all here, except for Ludwig and Raphael is here, which is a great component of that. But yeah, we would get in the rooms and like talk together. Is what we would do. We have production meetings often where everybody could talk about it. And I think at that point, from a cinematography standpoint, a lot of the look of the film had been discussed all of them, like, and it was, it been a lot of decisions made, and we were kind of in uncharted waters with the format, being two formats that hadn't been done in one film together, and everybody, each department was definitely excited about that, but for this one, man, we would meet early and often, like all of us in a room together, and we would just kind of like challenge each other on, how we were going to get it done, and we would make each other's problems our problems. You know what I mean? Like Ruth probably could tell you how long how much time we would have in a magazine. You know what I mean? Like she would know, and Autumn and Hannah already got a great relationship, but they help each other out a lot. Like Hannah might say, I know you guys talk all the time, but you might overhear them talking about, Hannah will say, hey, I got this kind of paint. It'd be cool if you can highlight this for me, or Autumn will ask Hannah, hey, I need a light there in design. If you can give me some practicals, like that type of thing. And there was a lot of that, a lot of those types of handoffs between all of us together.
So maybe we go in groups here, because obviously there's so many stages to something like this. I do think that understanding the blocking and how this is going to work is maybe a good place to start. So talking about production design, cinematography, what were some of the conversations between the two of you, both in kind of what the work you'd already done to that point, and then perhaps how you could take things in a bolder direction maybe than you had previously?
Well, I'll be honest, like when I read the script the one time, and it said montage, right? Juke joint montage, and it took me a minute to figure out what it was. I was kind of afraid to ask Ryan, like, what is this? What is this? And then he would describe, and it took a long time for me to but mostly I was, concerned with the blocking of all the stuff, right? Like Ryan and I would, he's like, here's kind of what I need. He did a sketch for me. I did a sketch, and it was like, yeah, that. And then we taped out the juke joint. So really I was creating the juke, right? And knowing that this montage was coming, it was as we were getting towards it, because at that point they were all rehearsing and all the camera work and all the, intricacies of that. And I was trying to figure out, how do we burn the ceiling? I want to do everything, everything needs to be practical as much as possible, because that ceiling did burn. And should it be wood? Should it be wood and metal? Can we burn metal? Of course we can burn metal, just make it really hot, like 300 degrees. And don't anybody, I think those guys were there for it. I was like, And what does the floor need to do, and what are the pieces that need to be there as far as the DJ tables showing up and things like that. So I was really just creating a bigger space based on the needs of sort of the blocking, and then putting the mood inside of that, and what the juke joint then represented for the story, which was, there's a piece of everybody in the juke joint. You have to look for it, and there's a piece of each of
Fire, remember, it goes down into the exterior location that you made for us on the land.
Oh, right, the one that's on the other side.
This how they work, for real.
It is.
Like
Well, this is Big Sister.
They start whispering and
Like,
they
I'm middle child energy. This is Big Sister. So we did. So it was outside, right? Like the ceiling burnt in the stage, and then we built like a sort of already burnt down juke joint perimeter outside, where she had this massive all this stuff, right? And then Ruth's beautiful costumes, and they'll both talk about that. But then we will. For me, it's always the place, right? Putting the place there. We had the stage there. I said to Ryan, because he knows. He's like, we should set the piano on fire. And the funny story, because that's all I got right now, is I said to the special effects guys, I'm like, okay. Delroy's gonna be sitting there, but just do a little thing. Just do a little bit, because we wanna, And Ryan and Autumn, they had their hands full that night, and I was just there and everybody was like, but they light that thing. It's 7 feet tall. It's Delroy's on one side of that piano bed playing. And there was this flame just shooting. And I walk out and Michael's like, and then I'm gonna stop. And Michael's like, well, how hot is it in there? Can I cuss?
I think so.
Okay, I said it's hot. And I said it's super hot. And he's like, well, how hot is it? I said, how hot as fuck? And then that was my time with the montage. This is what he's got to deal with. Get out with me.
The sequence is so joyous and has this kind of, feeling of freedom to it, but obviously there's an incredible amount of precision needed to pull it off. So even just given what you just said, Autumn, I'm curious, when you're stepping in, you're dealing with very heavy cameras that, as far as I know, cannot accomplish a one-er, in one take in that way. So how are you sort of segmenting it out while also creating this sense of fluidity that's, I think, so crucial to why it works?
Yeah, I think for me, there's like, when I read Ryan's script, there's always something in it that is special. And I think on another Q&A, he had mentioned that it was in italics, which reminded me, and I think he made a joke of like, it means we need to figure this out. Like, you read it and then you go to another place because it's so unique and imaginative. And then you have that conversation with him about what it means to him, and I think that's where I draw from. And so he explained that. He already had some boards that he had kind of drafted up to give us kind of an overall idea. But it's always something that he has in his scripts, and there's more than one usually, that needs, a meeting, that it needs like a big collaborative meeting with everyone, and everyone to kind of share their ideas to be able to execute like this big emotional kind of departure that the movie takes and gets everyone excited and kind of takes us into a new path. So he wanted to be a one fluid shot. That means because we have an IMAX format, we wanted to shoot with IMAX, it has to either be on a crane or a Steadicam, and I think we figured out that it'd be best on the Steadicam because it would give him that movement from character to character that he was looking for and be able to swim through the space elegantly. And that's a 75-second mag because it's too heavy to put a full load in the IMAX camera, so there are 3 stitches within that sequence that's in the interior of the space. But yeah, I mean, it's like collaboration at the highest level with everybody that's on here, on stage. And I think at the root of it is because we care so much about Ryan and what he writes that we want to execute it and, make sure that he's happy. At least that's what it means to me. I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing to kind of make sure it's executed is that whatever he wrote on the page is as beautiful and you don't feel the technical of what we're achieving.
Getting into the performance that ushers us into this montage, Miles, this is your first acting role. Spent months learning to play the guitar for this. Yeah. When you read this script and you read this scene, what is going through your head exactly?
I think I was just like blown away, just trying to process, the whole thing. And, there was no song attached to it yet at that point, so I was kind of just, reading, the montage and them talking about the different ancestors and the rock and stuff. So I knew it was going to be a really, important part of the film, and then having conversations with Ryan, but I was just like, man, like, how is this going to work? I thought it was going to be ghosts flying around and stuff. I didn't know how it was going to work, So I was just excited.
What did, I suppose, that set feel like on the days that you filmed? What was it like kind of doing take after take? You're obviously, the performance has to be at a certain level for any of this to work, so I'm curious how you got there.
Yeah. It was magnetic, for sure. I mean, I think, I had been, once we got to New Orleans, I'd been practicing, with Ludwig. I heard the song that him and Raphael created, and instantly it just, it gave me more context for Sammy. Like, this song is everything that he's trying to say to his cousins, to his father, to everyone that, is listening to his music. So once I got the song, I was able to internalize it a little bit more and then prepare for that moment. Got really good sleep before that day. I think they told me like the day before, like, surreal montage is tomorrow. I'm like, okay. And I've been building up the anticipation, so I was excited for that scene. And then when we got there, everything was just laid out. Like, all of the artists, the musicians, everybody was in their place, and they had been practicing for weeks. I was, off to myself working on the guitar and stuff like that. So when I got there and I saw everybody, it was just amazing. The energy was on 100. The whole cast was there. Everybody was, supporting me. Ryan was very supportive. So it was a special moment.
Ryan, could you talk a bit about bringing Raphael in and sort of what those initial conversations around the song look like?
Yeah. So, yeah, with the script, it was always a question of, because we were going, it took a while to write the screenplay, and in many ways it was like a, I count like all the years after my uncle passed as like a part of the writing process, you know what I mean? But in terms of like the production, it was, we were on a fast schedule. Once we got all of these incredible craftspeople here, and like Zinzi, one of our producers, one of the first people to read the script, and then we got it to Ludwig and his life partner and collaborator on this, Serena, who was our executive music producer, and they read the script, and we were just kind of talking about how we were going to get it done, and the big question was, were we going to use like blues standards, or were we going to write our own music? That was like a big debate we were having, early on in the process, and I think eventually we were like, look, we should write some songs, and we went to Memphis and spent time in Mississippi, and we're kicking around these ideas, and then we started to think about, like, we're gonna write an original song for Sammy to perform, and it was like, yo, who's gonna write it? And then right around that time, I don't know if I ever told you this, Raphael, but so Raphael, and specifically his older brother Dwayne, rest in peace. They're the founding members of Tony, obviously, but they from East Oakland, and his big brother grew up with my daddy. So like, and I went to school with Dwayne, rest in peace, with his kids and everything, and Tony always been my favorite group, just being from Oakland. But then, like, as I got older, I started to learn that, like, Raphael had written a lot of my favorite songs. Like I found out he wrote "Lady" by D'Angelo, rest in peace, and he played the bass on that. And then I did this crazy thing that I recommend for all husbands. But like in the summer before we made the movie, I loaded up like 2 Sprinter vans full of all the women in my life and took them to see Beyonce. And I remember, like I love Beyonce's music, but I'm not in the Bayhive and nothing, right? You know what I mean? So I ain't listening to everything consistently. But we was there, and Cuff It comes on, and I'm like, man, this might be my favorite Beyonce song, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm literally at the concert, and I go, man, who wrote this song? And I see Raphael's name, and I'm like, yo, this dude might be the best. This might be the best like songwriter to ever live. You know what I mean? He's from Oakland. You know what I mean? So he was on my mind. So then Ludwig was like, hey, yo, who's gonna write this? You know, who's gonna write this generational song? I'm like, man, we should hit Raphael, see if he open to it. So that was how I came up with the idea, and then him and Ludwig linked up. And I guess you could talk about like how that was, Raphael.
Hello? Yeah, you know, I'm super jet lagged right now, so I'm like, this room looks crazy to me. Yeah, but how it happened, I'm a fan of, I'll say kid, because he was a kid who grew up to be a man. He's from Oakland in the Bay Area, and he's successful, and I'm just so happy to see somebody to become worldly and leave our hometown and come in and help other people. So when he did Fruitvale, did the film, I know that story so well. I'm a friend of the family of Oscar, you know, so I knew the story so well, and you know, what happens in that movie happens so much in Oakland that it was hard for me to watch that film. And so I think I worked with Ryan's brother, who was an artist too, one time, Ryan Kwame. I've never seen him before in person. And then I got a call. Actually, a friend of mine, no ID, his assistant said, Ludwig is looking for you. That's how I found out. So I called him, I know him, and I came to his studio, and he, you know, I'm a studio geek, and his studio is very beautiful. He has the most beautiful furniture, Italian furniture. And so I was trying to jack everything, dude was not having it. He just silenced me out. But he gave me the story. He pitched it to me like so well. He was very calm. He told me this is a very small film. So that took a lot of pressure off me. I'm like, cool, small film, cool, we're gonna go for that. So he pitches it to me, and he tells me about Ryan's uncle and the blues, and then he puts Ryan on the phone, FaceTime, and then Ryan pitches it to me very calmly, but they never told me what they wanted me to do. So I'm like, am I scoring a film with Ludwig? And I was like, no, that's not happening. But Ludwig said, he said, we need this song. And I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking, can I go back to my studio and come up with an idea, and then me and Ludwig work it out? And then Ryan just says to me on FaceTime, we would like it if you just do it like now. So I'm like, right? And then Ludwig looks at me like, yeah, like now. It's like, we leave in 2 days to New Orleans. And I'm like, okay. So now I'm thinking about Ryan's from East Oakland, from Oakland, and Ludwig's this big guy, and he did all this stuff, all this music, and I'm like, I might be tested. So I kind of felt like I never saw the script, anything was nothing to see. I felt like we were like 3 bank robbers, and I was just the dude they told just to drive the car from front. We come out, and you just gonna drive the getaway car. So I think that's what I was in the film, man. I had to stand there and work on the song with Ludwig, and we sat there for like 2 hours, and we just went over guitar riffs. We played, and it's like Miles says, it's definitely rich in ancestry, very rich, because it takes me all the way back to Baptist. Union Baptist is a church I grew up in East Oakland, like 2 blocks from Oakland Coliseum where the Raiders played. And my pastor is a Baptist, and they sing hymns all the time. And I would always hang out with the deacons. The deacons would pick me up and take me to church in the morning when my mom was gone, and I would listen to the deacons sing and hum. And so I just started singing words. I don't remember anything that I sang when I recorded it. That was it. The next time I saw it was IMAX. Ryan invited me out with a lot of his film friends, and I was just sitting there, and the movie came on, and I didn't know what I was looking at. I was really confused. And I was like, this is a small film, and I'll just credit those two, Ryan and Ludwig, for just being very professional and being very great pitchers, and pitching a film that way that didn't have me nervous. But I do like pressure, so it was some pressure. And then what happened that I could never imagine was the most beautiful, biggest voice on the song was Miles. So, that's how I got it.
Love it. That's a journey. Going back to the look for the film and for the sequence, Ruth and Shunika, I mean, this is past, present, future, right? Incredible amount of research, I'm sure. Ruth, when I'm thinking about your incredible career, I'll be honest, the first time I saw this sequence, I was like, this is a career statement. Beautiful all in front. I guess the way I want to ask this is it looked like it must have been incredibly fun to get to go in all those directions and just throw everything in there.
Yeah, it was a lot of directions for sure. But one thing I can tell you is that this man over here, Ryan Coogler, is a genius. What he wrote had all of us excited as a group, as collaborators, as filmmakers. The film has everything I've ever wanted to be as a costume designer, a storyteller, bringing surrealism, bringing spirit, bringing symbolism and story to the screen. And I had a great opportunity in this surrealistic montage to do all of that. And yet, there were so many different directions you could go in. So one of the genius of Ryan Coogler is he remembers everything about 80s fashion. And he was born in the 80s. So he'd say, I mean, it's the most obscure ones too. He'd say, that's Echo. You got that guy in Echo right there. And I was like, how does he even know this? But the back and forth, the collaboration, sharing images, we decided to, it actually looks the way it was written, but there were little gems in there. We could start with Miles, you know, his color palette. When we fit Miles, his clothes were beiges. It was mostly beige, and we dyed everything so he would have this rooted earth tone quality about his clothes that worked with the whole film. And then when you see him start out this surreal montage, he's grounded in his color palette, he's grounded in the song. You really know, when you come back to him, you come back to earth. And the surreal guitarist that comes in, we were looking at Bootsy Collins, but we didn't want it to, you know, overshadow everything. So it was a delicate balance to get that costume right and not overstate it so that you could move along through the scene. And then you see the hip hop dancer in the middle of the floor, and he's wearing like an authentic LL Cool J look from the 90s with the Kango. And the Zuwali dancer, who was one of my favorites, we had to go to the rehearsals, and you know, this young man who did the dancing actually was from that area. He knew the dance really well. And for him to come in the fitting room and see the costume and see his eyes light up was thrilling because you felt like you got it right. But the headpiece, we had a hard time, you know, with that dance and the movement and rehearsals, it kept falling, and like he's got on a football helmet underneath that thing and something on top of that. So we had to immerse with each other. We had to go to the rehearsals. You know, I put up tripods with the costume fittings on the set because we made this film really fast and everyone was busy. But we found time to share with each other. You know, Michael Ralla would come into our department and say, you know, I need a mannequin to put this weird camera on. It's gonna have like 6 lenses all around it. And we were all in the same building. So we could see what each other was doing, and we could walk across the street to the stages, and and be together with what was being shot, because Ryan shared his heart with us. He shared his Uncle James with us, and that meant a lot. It meant a lot. It meant that we had to get it right for him, and we all felt the spirit of that love and that passion, not only for filmmaking, but also for family. And we had become a family in New Orleans. And, if Hannah was having a good day and I was having a bad day, we knew about it. So, right? So, going back to the surrealistic montage, we did the exterior first. So I had kind of like a rehearsal. And a lot of costumes went out there. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't make that up. Did I make that up? And some things really work for the story. It kind of comes from like a subconscious level at some point where you're creating something that works for the story, and it may not be specific to a region of Africa, but it has the spirit of the story. So I created this costume with this big feather headdress, and took mud cloth and strapped it around the guy's body, and roped it at the waist, and told him he had to do it barefoot. And when it went to set, and I shared with Ryan, costume pictures and whatnot, but Ryan walks over to me and he was like, okay, what's that? And I was like, so maybe he can be in the deep background. But then when you see him in the deep background, he becomes this spirit, this power in the back. And I think that's like the power of alignment. Like we were aligned in what our intention was for this surrealist moment, for the whole film. And it was a love letter to Uncle James. It was a love letter to my Aunt Ramona. I mean, we could all kind of put ourselves in the South and understand it. And I think that's what also added to this, beautiful story that we told.
Now, I only told jokes, and all these people talking about. I'm up here like fire. Okay, I just had to say something. I was like, that was beautiful. That was beautiful. And I'm just like.
There's room for both. Shunika, did you approach it in a similar spirit to what Ruth's talking about, just given the breadth of where you could go?
Definitely approach it that way. When I read the script and going through the surreal montage and breaking down each ancestor that was a part of it, we wanted to make sure that we respected each culture and represent them in true accuracy. And that allowed me to go in, and even with makeup department, that we all just gathered together and just figured out how could we do the best that we could for representing everyone in the right way. And a big part of it was, marching down to Ruth's warehouse and looking at all of the choices that she made for each and every ancestor. And from there, we would go to the dance rehearsals and see who was casted for those roles. And what I found when we seen everyone, I was like, okay, well, definitely they do not look like the ancestors. So what do we need to do to put them in that period, in that time? And the big part was for me, for the hair, is paying attention to everyone's texture and what could we create with their textures. And some had hair that we just couldn't create, because I wanted to go without wigs for a lot of, for majority of the people that were on, the cast and the background. And so when I paid attention to everyone, I was like, okay, great, this guy has very long dreads. What we're gonna do is pull his locks up and create a tower, for the griot. But then I wanted to make sure that it waterfalled out, and when he moves and when he hits the mangos, and you see his head move, and it gives you movement. And we wanted everyone to feel the spirits as you move throughout the room. And Ryan, you did a great job. We was trying to figure out, like, how do we follow this? I'm reading it on paper, but then what do we need to do to make it come to life? And I would say that the big part also was I do want to mention for makeup, they wanted to make sure that everyone had this glow for, and you can see the difference between the spirits as they move through the room, where most of the juke dancers, you see them and their mood, and you see the sweat and the heat that's coming from them in this moment, but then also as the spirits came through, they just kind of like floated through and we moved through that scene. And that was a big part, especially for the Chinese opera dancer. It was a beautiful headpiece that was used. Perlene's Future, she had these very intricate braids that we intertwined into a headpiece that Ruth had designed, but the headpiece was heavy. And we knew that this lady had to dance all the way throughout the room for hours. And what do we do to make sure that it was stable? So I just realized, like, you know what, let's create these nice braids and then just intertwine it and wrap it around the headpiece so when she moved, it didn't fall off. And there was a lot of bits and pieces. It was a lot of work that went into it, but after watching the movie and seeing how it came together, it was absolutely beautiful. It was bigger than I imagined. I know, just reading it on paper, we wanted to make sure that we represented each culture in the right way, and I feel like that we all achieved it.
I would imagine, Chris, that would even extend to the sound design as the scene is getting bigger and more complicated and sounds from different eras are coming in. How did you sort of approach that whole complexity?
Well, as far as, I feel like that would be probably more in the world of sound design and being on set. For this particular sequence, I think the biggest things for us, it started out as a scene with a live performance. You have Miles, who is introduced for the first time in front of these patrons at the juke joint, and you know, you can hear a pin drop at that moment. You know, he's out there and he's vulnerable and nobody really knows what's about to happen. And that was a portion of this whole sequence that was done as a live record. So, you know, because of the fact that we were shooting it, that portion of it, we had tight shots, we had wide shots, we had to, and also that, you know, the majority of this movie, pretty much all of the movie, I think there was one scene that actually had some amplified instruments, but that was maybe cut from the movie. The bulk of the performances that are musical are acoustic. We have live guitars, we have you know, fiddles, banjos, pianos, harmonicas, vocals, all these things that are being performed live, and this scene started out in that same way. So, you know, in a collaborative sense, working with the other departments, you know, Ruth's team was helpful when we watched the rehearsal of Miles performing for the first time in that space. I noticed that, you know, when he's playing the guitar, his right hand wasn't really moving, you know, and we're always trying to figure out how can we keep the sound consistent, you know, when you're going from wide shots to tight shots. We want that guitar to sound the same and as good as, you know, when you can get that shotgun microphone right up next to it, you know, in a tight shot. And you know, we also had the fact that these are all relics, these instruments, or they belong to these musicians. And so modifying them wasn't really like an option. And so, you know, Ruth's team was helpful. Miles, he went along with it too, but we had our costume department sew a microphone into the cuff of his shirt, just so that we could get it right next to that guitar and record that performance. And then, you know, it cuts away to the section where Delta Slim is kind of giving him his, some wisdom, and then it cuts back, and then that's when we're in the surreal montage. When it got to that point, that was really more of a playback situation, because there's so many pieces happening, you know, in tandem with each other. You have choreography, you have, you know, I think somebody touched on this, but you know, at the point when you see the DJ come onto into the frame, you know, that was physically like figuring out how are we going to get this turntable set up, brought onto the stage, And I don't know who came up with the solution, but it's great. But our prop master, Doug, he was part of that. He brought it in, and then he faded into the background. He became one of the people that's nodding their head, you know? And the other thing about it is, it was a really technical shot, but it wasn't one that was really on my radar, you know. This whole movie, going into it, my focus was always on these live performances, you know, and not only just live performances, but again with the acoustic element of it, we were doing these things in environments that were not conducive for recording sound typically. 110-degree weather has a pretty big impact on acoustic guitars and the tuning. We had a member of Ludwig's team, Noah Gorlick, who was with us, that he would jump out at any minute, you know, between every single take, he was tuning those guitars. Sometimes you'd go to do a take and it's like, you know, they're like, roll sound, you know, get all these things ready to happen, and it's like, sorry, that we got to stop and retune that guitar, you know, and things like that. And so my focus was always on that, you know, car driving down gravel roads with the top down and wind and all this stuff, but we still have to somehow record this man's performance, and it has to make the movie. And so, to be honest, when I read the script and I saw the surreal montage and we talked about it, and I was like, what's this? Like, what am I supposed to do on this one? And it was like, oh, well, that portion is going to be, you know, mostly playback. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I'm like, I can kind of relax, you know? But then, you know, from the standpoint of the technical aspects of it, I learned pretty much like a day or so before how we were going to really shoot this, you know, because it didn't seem like it would impact our department so much. We were just going to play that music in the space. But, yeah. But because of the limitations of the mag being able to only carry like 76 seconds or whatever, we started talking about the idea of this being stitched together. And, you know, the song was so many minutes long, and there was this realization that I had where, you know, everybody's trying to perform and do all these things to the music, and we have to hit this first stitch point, which is like right on when there's the piano, the camera passes the piano, and it was like, that's where we cut. And, you know, we did it however many takes we did, and we landed on that piano part, and Ryan was happy, everybody was happy, and I'm freaking out because I'm like, we hit that point like 3 or 4 seconds early, and that now means that time has to be added on to the next point. And so at some point I'm thinking like we might run out of, you know, not be able to complete the whole the run, you know, with the 3 stitch points. And I brought it up to Ludwig, who was on set with us, which is like something that never happens, having a composer on set. And he and our music editor, Felipe, they were like, oh, well, like, we'll just change the song. You know? So he's like, he goes over to his, you know, to the computer, and he's like composing on set with us, like adjusting the song, which ultimately adjusts everything. But it was like, it just had this ability to just continue to roll with the punches. And so to me, that was like, you know, being part of that and being, you know, tied so closely with everyone, and you know, bringing the technical side of it and having those creative opportunities, like thinking about how can we get a microphone where we otherwise couldn't. That's what, you know, that's what I'm most proud of with this movie.
I think you make a really important point about, you know, the collaborative scope of this work and not even necessarily knowing what you're in for, just in your particular department. When it comes to visual effects, Michael, we've heard the collaboration with you referenced a few times already, and that's not always as common. So I'm curious what you can share just about what felt unique in that regard with a sequence like this, of being able to talk with all these different departments in terms of what your work would look like.
Yeah, I mean, I learned that every Ryan Coogler film is just a huge and massive collaboration, and that's really what makes it beautiful to work on his films. I mean, just going back, where it really started for us was in one of those meetings with Ryan, and I remember I think it was a little bit smaller. It was Autumn and Hannah and I think Ruth, And Hannah put like a blueprint of the juke on the table, and then, you know, fast forward a little bit, Autumn started drawing a potential camera path in there. And then I always loved visiting Ruth in her, like, where she was located in the production office, because there was some real shit getting done, you know. There were just all these women working and stitching, and it was amazing. It was just like coming from the digital world, something that I hadn't really seen to that level, and so I really enjoyed every single time I was able to go there. And, you know, Ruth showed us all the different characters that she was preparing, and, you know, going back to the script and reading it, the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, I think this is going to look like something out of Harry Potter, with a bunch of ghosts, and you know, and I couldn't be further from where it was, but like, you know, that's what the visual effects guy thinks. And so and then from that point, you know, like Autumn already described it, she made the together with Ryan the call that we were going to go unsteady, and there were limitations to how long the magazines could go, and so we started just prevising this whole thing and what it could look like. You know, it's essentially like making a computer game looking like a version of that just early on, and you know, it was a lot of iterations going back and forth with Autumn, going back and forth with Ryan, and but we were sort of working in a vacuum without sound. And then I remember the first time that was brought together with the song, and I was just going like, holy shit, okay, I think I understand what's going on here. It was really amazing. And then from that point forward, we knew where the stitch points were going to be, and you know, like Chris just said, we knew when we had to hit them. And but the one thing that was, you know, absolutely amazing is that the day we were shooting all of this, and Ryan making adjustments, and, you know, we want to be a little bit more along on this guy and on that person, like everyone else was just dynamically adjusting to that as well. And I've never worked together that closely with a composer who's just adjusting the song. So that was quite amazing. And then, you know, fast forward to the last day of principal photography, which is when we burned the roof down. And I mean, Hannah's laughing, but just that whole thing. I remember, I think, a while back before that, I got a call from Autumn at night, and she was like, are you crazy? Like, please tell me that there's no moving camera or anything like that. And it did happen on the last day. We shot that, and it looked amazing. And that was the end of principal photography. And now going into post and working with Mike Shawver, the editor, and, you know, revamping it all. We had put it all together, all the stitches were beautifully, that element that we shot looked amazing. And then Ryan goes, hey, I want to go through the roof now. Which meant now we needed a moving camera. And at that point, you know, we hadn't shot that, so we used that as a beautiful high-end reference to just do a digital recreation of that fire and of that roof pushed through. And there's an image of Joshua Tree that's showing the Milky Way in the sky that I shot like when I was out there. And I remember every single time that we looked at it in one of the reviews, we pushed through, and Ryan would always say, Joshua Tree. And we'd tilt down and you know, see the rest of the sequence. It was such a really cool experience to see it all coming together, and every one, you know, of the collaborators that are here, and also the ones that are not here today, just injecting their heart and soul, which I think is what ultimately made this movie what it is and why it is so beautiful.
With the editing, Michael, I wanted to ask you about the way it starts, because I think we get a real sense of the scope of this scene and the fact that this scene is going to matter and this is going to be a big scene. Just in Delta Slim's words coming back and hearing Annie sort of foretelling a little bit. What were those conversations like in terms of how this was going to be set up in the edit, and then ultimately getting to a kind of wonder, of course, from there?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, a lot of the sequence, because of all the planning and the pre-production and these incredible artists involved, you know, for me, my part, a lot of, you know, as the editor, you're the first audience. And so making sure that this experience is the memorable one, is this thing that makes people float out of their seats feel like they've gone through something. And so, there were little things throughout where, maybe little push-ins here, a little speed around here to just keep the flow of it and keep people engaged, and different things like that. But there were a lot of conversations about how we get into this scene. And, we all loved it. We were big fans of it. It was never coming out of the movie. But there was a certain percentage of people at the test screenings who didn't react well to it, I guess you could say. And I think inherently there's a what the fuckness to the sequence. And when you're, anytime you edit a movie, you're always trying to walk this line between intrigue and confusion. You don't want to go too far into confusion. And, you want people to say, oh, what the fuck, that's cool, not what the fuck's happening? And so, when you have Bootsy Collins show up in the middle of a juke in the 1930s, you're going to automatically have that. And so, in a lot of ways, we thought of that as the main course. And so we needed to whet the palate. We needed to let the audience have some appetizers so their hunger would grow for it and it would be more palatable, I guess, when they watched it. So, one of the first things that we needed to do was make it feel like it was from Sammy's perspective, and so in the performance, we, towards the end of that performance, once everybody's wowed and we start to go, into his head, we would push in as far as we could, and we, call Ralla and how far can we push in? You get like 20%, and then we'd say, can we do 30? And he's like, I don't know, and then 40, and I don't know, but getting as close to Miles in this moment to then pull out to reveal the world. It's also the moment we did, one of the two moments in the movies, which I'm so glad we did, because I love it, is when we changed the aspect ratio in the IMAX sequence. And so, it's a dangerous thing to do because you're reminding the audience they're watching a movie, which if the audience is realizing they're watching the movie, they're out of the alpha trance that they're in when they're watching it. But setting it up to be such a subjective type of emotional feeling from Sammy is sort of how we entered into that moment to make it, understand that, okay, different things could happen, and you're entering a place where reality and magic and history all combine and dance together, right? And so, there's a scene with Delta Slim at the piano, which was actually cut out of the movie at the time, but we loved what was in it so much, and it was so unique and special, and obviously Delroy is incredible, and Miles. So we took a few lines from that to, and we realized that it didn't take people out to see a scene or moments from a scene they didn't see before, and it all worked that way. And then, but really the thing that, really helped us and helped it work was Brian came up with the idea of having the prologue of the movie. And, editing it isn't always this scene. A scene can be cut perfect, but it doesn't feel right because of what came before it. And filmmaking is a kaleidoscope. Once one thing changes, everything changes. And so having this prologue and having Annie speak about music and, the gift being so true, it can pierce the veil between life and death. And so associating, we don't show Sammy yet in the movie in that prologue, but there's a guy who basically you could think of as Sammy, and through musicians and special musicians, connecting magic and ancestors and that. So when the audience is getting that piece of information as they're settling in and taking everything in, they automatically know that they're ready for it, And in a lot of ways, as an editor, especially at the beginning of the movie, you sort of have to teach the audience what they're about to watch. And if it's a comedy, make them laugh, because they need to know that it's okay to laugh throughout the movie. If it's a horror movie, we have jump scares towards the beginning so they're on edge or know that will come. So, setting that up was such a brilliant idea and allowed us to unlock that sequence, later in the movie. And, we had a lot of discussions about who should be speaking about this. We talked about, having several voices, but Annie truly is the heart of the movie and the an emotional center of the movie, but is the one that understands this otherworldliness and spirituality. So it just made sense, to have her there, speaking. So then when we get back to the sequence, repeating a few of those things in the experience of watching the movie, you're familiar with this, so when you're ready for all this crazy shit to happen, and you're just along for the ride. I will say that one of the things I'm most proud of is in the shot that pulls back before we reveal Remek at the very end. Towards the end, I realized that Cornbread didn't have an ancestor. He was sitting by himself at the door. Everyone else is having fun dancing with their ancestors, but Cornbread's just working. And so I asked Ryan, and he was gracious enough to let us try. So, we talked to Michael, and they found sprites, and they had shot so many different elements of different things. So if you watch the movie now, Cornbread's still sitting at the door, but there's a ancestor next to him, vibing out and protecting them, just just like he is.
Is that collaboration? We talked a lot about the extraordinary craft on this, and as we wrap, Ryan, I'd love to just ask you a little bit about the emotion of it a little bit more. This movie opens up so much, both in the storytelling and in the emotion, I think, with this sequence. The way that this sequence has resonated, the way that it's talking about Black culture, Black movement, history. What would you say about the way that this scene has landed with audiences in relation to what you were trying to say with it?
You said, what do I have to say about my bad?
Yeah, the way that it's resonated in terms of what this was about for you. Why do you think, when you're talking about it? Yeah.
Yep. I think that yeah, not to get too deep. Like I'm a writer, director, and it's like a profoundly weird job, bro. And I'm gonna partition it too, cause like there's like the writer side of what I do, but then there's like the director side, and it's a really specific job, but a director is also just kind of useless, like out of context. You know what I mean? Like Miles can like make a song, Ruth can like make clothes, Hannah can make fucking anything. You know what I mean? All of them can make beautiful images. You know what I mean? Like about moving hand still. She's a great still photographer too. Shawver can cut together, anything. You know what I mean? Like Raphael can write a song. He can make a song. He can play it for you. He can perform. You know what I mean? Like Shunika can do great art with people's hair. You know what I mean? Both Chris and Ralla are musicians before they got into doing other things. But Chris can like record, anything, anywhere, anytime. Like Ralla he's master. Bro, how many computer programs do you know, bro? 10, 15. You can, like a director, bro. And they can all do these things completely alone. You know what I'm saying? Like as a director, you need other people. And like when I think about other artists, I get incredibly jealous. You know what I'm saying? And I'm the most jealous of musicians. It infuriates me to think about, like Raphael, just like he did a one-man show like in Oakland the other day, and I was so proud of him, but I was, as proud of him was, I was 5 times as jealous, you know what I mean? Like, why couldn't God give me these abilities, you know what I'm saying?
Let's trade.
Yeah. You don't want that, bro, trust me.
I agree.
So like the magic that one song. Like I got 3 kids now, and they I don't know about the baby, but the 2 older ones love music, and over the holidays they was obsessed with this song called River that Joni Mitchell wrote. They was listening to the CeeLo version, but then I played them the Joni Mitchell version, and it was maybe like my 200th time listening to this song, and it was still like brand new. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, bro. Like she sat down, wrote this, played this, and it just still has its value in the outer body experience that a really great song can give you, or a really great meal can give you. Like for me, that's what I'm always trying to do with a movie, and I'm always reminded and humbled that I can't do it alone as a filmmaker. Like I gotta do it with other people. You know what I mean? Like this art form that I was blessed with. It requires like the community. You know what I mean? It requires people who are better at everything than I am. You know what I'm saying? And for some reason they listen to me for a few months out the year. You know?
But we can't do it without you, and we can't do it without a good story.
Right on. But how it affects me is like it reminds me that this medium is still legitimate. You know what I mean? Like it still has a reason to exist. It still has something to say. And for like Raphael, actually Saul Williams, who plays Preacher Boy's pops, he watched a version of the movie and he said something to me that I'll never forget. But it wasn't as pushed as far as me and Shawver and Ralla and Luke would eventually push it. But he said to me, he said, "Hey man, like that scene is your solo as an artist. You know, that's your solo. So you gotta push it all the way there." So that made me feel like a musician for the length of that conversation.
And on that note, Ryan, everybody, thank you so much. Thank you all for coming out.